the illustrious history of football itself, there have only been a select few to achieve the pinnacle of silverware success. These 6 players have conquered every major feat that the sport has to offer, from a major league title to the Champions League, the International Continental Cup of whatever country they're from, to the World Cup, and including the one individual award that every single player dreams of winning, the Ballon d'Or. These are the 6 players who have completed football. We kick things off with Harry Kane. Kane? Are we just telling jokes on the teleprompter now? What are we doing, guys? Let's start with the 2 German maestros who defined an entire era of football. These 2 teammates completed football together. They were so dominant at both club and country that they won every single title possible. And it was on July 7th, 1974, when they won their final title, the World Cup. And that was Gerd Muller and Franz Beckenbauer lifting the trophy. But it didn't start there. It actually started just 5 years beforehand, in 1969, when Franz Beckenbauer and Gerd Muller won the Bundesliga title with Bayern Munich for the first time in their careers, their first major trophy. And Gerd Muller also collected the Golden Boot that year, but it wasn't until the next season when Gerd Muller scored 38 goals in just his 33 matches that he played, setting the Bundesliga record for the most amount of goals scored by one player in a single season. But it actually wasn't enough for them to win the title again. In fact, Mönchengladbach edged them out in the title race. I mean, can you imagine scoring like over 35 goals in a season and yet your team doesn't win the title? I mean, that must be brutal. Am I right, guys? Anyways, it was enough for Gerd Muller to win the Ballon d'Or that year, just a few ahead of his counterpart Franz Beckenbauer. 2 years later, Franz Beckenbauer got the job done. Because in 1972, not only did this duo win the Bundesliga for the second time, but Franz Beckenbauer also captained West Germany to a dominant 3-0 victory in the finals of the Euros, being hosted in Belgium over the Soviet Union, which secured him as one of the only defenders in the history of football to win the Ballon d'Or. And that takes us back to 1974. We know that that's the year that they won the World Cup, but 53 days before the World Cup final was a final that was much more dramatic. It was the Champions League final, or at the time, the European Cup. This match between Bayern Munich and Atletico Madrid had everything. And when I mean everything, it even had an extra match, because throughout the 90 minutes, it went scoreless and it went to extra time. Atletico Madrid scored in the 114th minute. Bayern Munich, in the dying embers of the match, score in the 120th minute, but they don't go to penalties in 1974. They replay the match, and when they replay the game, Bayern Munich come out and absolutely dominate with a 4-0 victory led by their top goal scorer, Gerd Muller, who scored 2 in that final alone. So in just 5 years, this duo, Franz Beckenbauer and Gerd Muller, completed football. They won every single title possible. And they didn't stop there. They went on to win 3 straight Champions Leagues, 4 league titles, and Franz Beckenbauer got another Ballon d'Or in 1976. It took over 25 years for any other player to accomplish what that German duo did in the 70s again. But that's when, in the very early 2000s, a very tricky Brazilian winger got the job done. Most known for his time at Barcelona, I think you know who I'm talking about. Rivaldo, of course. Gotcha. Rivaldo's career was very interesting because it lasted 25 years at a professional level, but he was able to acquire most of his accolades in just a 5-year stint with Barcelona. His time at Barcelona was nothing short of extraordinary, as he was able to amass 130 goals during that time, putting him 8th on the all-time leading scorers for Barcelona. But during that time, he was also able to win the La Liga title with Barcelona back-to-back years. He went on to carry that form into Copa America with Brazil, and despite getting a red card against Mexico, which suspended him for the next group stage match as well, he was still able to amass 5 goals and an assist in the campaign. 2 of the goals and the assist coming in the final against Uruguay, which not only led him to lifting the Copa America trophy, but also led him to lifting the Ballon d'Or at the end of the year as well. But one thing about that Copa America in 1999 was the fact that there was another tricky winger coming up the ranks, and his name this time was Ronaldinho. He played less than 90 minutes during that entire campaign, but he lifted the trophy just like everybody else, and 3 years later, he reunited with Rivaldo during the 2002 World Cup, where this time he played a much bigger factor. When you have forwards such as Rivaldo, R9, and Ronaldinho, I mean, simply nobody was stopping them. And they went to another World Cup title, and despite R9 being the player of that tournament, Rivaldo still played a major factor, and Ronaldinho had 2 goals and 3 assists. They were absolutely unbelievable. And then Rivaldo just needed one more trophy to complete football, and that was the Champions League. He didn't think he was going to get it done at Barcelona. So he left Barcelona in 2002 to join a very, very talented AC Milan side led by Carlo Ancelotti, and it did not take long before Rivaldo completed football by winning the Champions League with Milan. But after he left Barcelona, they looked to fill his shoes, and who did they pick up? Well, it was Ronaldinho. Not only did Ronaldinho fill those shoes, you could argue that those shoes were too small for him, because he also won La Liga in back-to-back years, and when he did so in 2005, he also captained Brazil to the Confederations Cup title, scoring in that game, which was enough for him to win Ballon d'Or in 2005. But Ronaldinho completed football in the next season, which I think was the best of his career. He was absolutely unbelievable for Barcelona in the league with 17 goals and 18 assists, but on top of that, he also led them to the Champions League trophy with 7 goals, 5 assists in that campaign as well. That was the last trophy that he needed to complete football, but he threw on a Copa Libertadores later in his career, a Serie A title, and much more. Those 2 Brazilians were not the only players making their mark on football history during this exact same era, and despite the fact that they never played with this Frenchman, the amount of time they spent on the pitch as an opponent is pretty considerable. Zinedine Zidane was known for using his head in more ways than one. Pause. And I'm also not talking about in 2006 when he decided to headbutt Materazzi and get sent off in the final of the World Cup, because thankfully he had scored 2 header goals against Rivaldo's Brazil in the 1998 World Cup that led France to lifting the trophy. Zidane also triumphed over Ronaldinho's Barcelona in 2003 when his Galacticos of Real Madrid won La Liga, but he had already won a top 5 league title twice with Juventus in the late 90s as well. Zidane played a major part in France winning the Euro 2 years after they won the World Cup as well, where Zidane played quite the midfield shift. Several of these games went to extra time, and in the semi-final, he also played 120 minutes, scoring the winner in the 117th minute against Portugal. Then in 2002, in the Champions League final, Zinedine Zidane scored that goal against Bayer Leverkusen, which lifted him the final trophy he needed in his cabinet to complete football. And you could argue that Zinedine Zidane is the best player on this list so far. And it's very, very important to say so far, because the final player on this list has ascended to another level. He's won 12 league titles, so you can take your pick. He's won 4 Champions Leagues, so take your pick. He's won 8 Ballon d'Ors, so take your pick. It came down to Lionel Messi's accomplishments at the national level. Lionel Messi was already regarded as the greatest of all time to many before he had even gotten halfway through his career because of his successes at Barcelona. It's rivaled by none, but it wasn't due to the lack of success at club level. It was the lack of success at the international level that still had people hating on his name. He had still not won a major trophy with Argentina, and despite coming close in 2007, losing in the final to Brazil in Copa America, despite losing in the final to Chile in the final of Copa America where Messi missed his penalty, despite losing in the final to Germany in the 2014 World Cup where Mario Götze scored a screamer in the 113th minute, and another Copa America final loss for Argentina, Lionel Messi still wasn't able to get the job done. It wasn't until a brand new era of Argentinian players came through, like Emiliano Martinez, like the Butcher at the back, Lautaro Martinez and Julian Alvarez, that supported him and helped him reach the Copa Copa America final where finally they were able to triumph over Brazil in 2021. They went on to beat the Euros winners Italy in the Finalissima 3-0, but it was the final peak, the World Cup 2022 in Qatar, when Lionel Messi led one of the greatest World Cup campaigns in the history of the sport, completing football once and for all, and then moving to Miami to just enjoy life, because there was just nothing else for him to win. The greatest of all time. This YouTube channel, Nitro Football, is brand new, guys, so if you guys could drop a subscription to the channel, that would mean the world to me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.